Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome to the Ageless Sisters, your global source for beauty and anti-aging, with your host, Cynthia Rowland, creator of Facial Magic and Luscious Lips.
Well, good morning, everyone. I'm in Los Angeles this morning, and it's so nice to be able to do a radio show. That's not until Monday. Radio show, especially when you have someone that's a friend that you bring onto your show, you know them well, and I have that privilege today of having Dr. Ruth Rosenbaum on the show. Now, a lot of people say to me, well, because sometimes I just run out of time, and they say, well, who's your next guest? So I've decided from now on I'm just going to say, this is our next guest, and that way I can run the show without having to try to make space for it at the end of the show, which doesn't always happen. So our next guests is plural, as you heard me with that S, are Dr. Myra and Dr. Jason Caltons, and they have been on our show previously and were asked to return because they had such a popular show, and it's going to be all about nutrition. So just so you know, September 5th is our next show. But today I have a wonderful woman. Her name is Dr. Ruth Rosenbaum. And I have known Dr. Ruth for quite some time. And we met, and we just have had the best relationship over the years. And she was always been a little timid about coming on my show, but finally I twisted her arm, and she is on the show today. Now, she is a licensed psychoanalyst in private practice in New York City. And she gets to have the best job ever. Not only does she help people discover themselves, but she also gets to travel and put on these wonderful events. And she just got back from like 10 days to 2 weeks in Europe, and she'll probably tell us a little bit about that. But let's bring her on the show and give her a big Ageless Sisters welcome to Dr. Ruth Rosenbaum.
Well, thank you so much, Cynthia. It is such a pleasure to be here, really, with you and your listeners.
Good. Well, having a psychoanalyst on the show probably would intimidate me if I didn't know you so well, but you're just like a regular girl.
Absolutely, and also, if you remember, too, since we've known each other, that I'm also a certified biofeedback therapist and also a certified yoga and meditation instructor. So I integrate mind, body, and spirit in most of the work I do with people.
That is so wonderful, because mind, body, and spirit makes up our whole everything, and if something is missing or lacking, it can throw us into a tizzy.
Absolutely. Especially, I think, especially for women. I think there's a lot of pressure on women that sometimes we're not even aware we're responding to.
That's probably true, because so many women suffer from anxiety, stress-related illnesses, depression, and, I'm thinking of one of my girlfriends in particular, and I just said to her the other day, maybe some biofeedback therapy would work for you. And that's really important to know someone like yourself, Dr. Ruth, who can offer that to your patients.
With biofeedback, we all know, that the mind and body are not separate, that they communicate with each other all the time. And with biofeedback, you are able actually to eavesdrop on that communication. You witness it on the video monitor. And then when you learn more about that communication, you can kind of go in within yourself, and you can make the changes that make that communication a healthier one. And there are many, many ailments that biofeedback can help without medication. And, I get a lot of referrals from physicians for people who, let's say, either medication doesn't work or they don't want to take it. And there are a variety of things, including migraine headaches, insomnia, hypertension, many, many, many things. And it all has to do with what I think potentially women are very good at, which is an intuitive inner awareness of their own bodies. And I think sometimes we're distracted from that intuitive inner awareness by all the emphasis, and of course I think it's important to look good and be attractive. You know me long enough to know that. But the there's almost a mass hypnosis to have us focusing on the outside to the exclusion sometimes of the inner awareness of our bodies.
Well, I like what you're saying because some women just don't recognize that they have that inner awareness at their fingertips.
Well,
they don't know how to access it, or they don't know how to communicate that they know about it. But
exactly.
I think you're onto something really special there.
Well, let me give then a suggestion, okay, just on what you just said. Okay. So we all look in mirrors, right? We all want to look good. We want to have our hair right. We want to, really look good. We want to look ageless, all of that. Very important. I'm not taking away from that. But think about it, Cynthia. When you look in the mirror, you or other women, when you look in the mirror, we're focusing on, okay, what's wrong here? What can I do to make this flaw right? What's wrong? And we bring our energy and attention to our outsideness. Now, what if every time you looked in the mirror, even if you're still looking at how to make yourself look better, what if you took a deep breath and you also brought your awareness inside and you sort of became aware of what are you feeling inside? Are you feeling anxiety? Are you feeling aliveness? Are you feeling deadness? Where are you feeling those things? You can know so much about yourself, and then also with someone's guidance perhaps make changes if you also bring your awareness to the inside. And you can do that. We can go from surface to depth in an instant just by making a mental shift. So that there's this wisdom of the body that we have within us, but we're so geared, everything tells us to look good, to look sexy, but not necessarily to feel good and to feel sexy. Do you know what I mean?
I know. I like this.
And, when we look, often when, women look at other women, I hear this from my young patients in their 20s. They say that the girls are much harder on other girls, women, than the men are. And so when women look at other women and focus on how they look, what they're wearing, especially if they're looking to criticize or find something lacking, then you can, again, take that deep breath, go to the fuller sense of yourself and connect with hers. So we don't have to be these two-dimensional straw figures eyeing each other's, dresses. We can become two souls taking in each other's fullness of being. I think you and I do that when we're together,
I think we
right?
do too. Yes, because we alleviate the separateness between us.
Oh, yes. And potentially women are more geared toward doing that, but we get sidetracked. We get drawn into what the, cultural and also many of the medical messages. Have you ever thought of this? Think of how women are drawn, even unconsciously, to experience their breasts. On one side, you have pornographic images, which have many women I work with and know they're always like, their breasts are not enough, not big enough, not small enough, not right.
Not enough, not right, yeah.
Then on the other side, the medical images of the breast, the mammograms, the MRIs, all of that has people thinking of their breasts as they're about to kill you. So you have inadequacy on one side and you have fear on the other. Where is the healthy? So that's why I encourage women to really develop a habit of going within and finding other ways of experiencing not just breasts. That was an easy example because they're so focused on both medically and, media-wise. So I don't know if does that make sense to you?
It does, absolutely. And, something that you touched on early on was the fact that so many patients are medicated and they may not, in my opinion, have the wherewithal to go in and really explore this inner feelings because their attention is being taken away because of the medication or something that. I feel like that.
That is a very good point. Not just the medications, but in some ways, and I don't mean everyone, this is not, to mean all medical professionals. But one of my colleagues is someone who heads who's in charge of like the psychology part of a women's health clinic, and she said that the women tell her that when they try to tell the doctor, even the female doctor, when they go in with a list of questions or really get more subtle about what they're feeling within themselves, when they're doing the right thing, the doctors call them neurotic, hysterical. So we're not encouraged to do the very thing that we are potentially very good at and can help our health without reaching immediately for medication or immediately for doctor. There's a lot that we can know about ourselves if we bring our attention to it, and we have to kind of fight the trend to not do that, even in a medical situation, because every time you ask a doctor questions, as difficult as it might be, you're doing it not just for yourself, but for every other woman who follows you.
Exactly.
Right?
Well, okay. So I'm just going to kind of look at some of these questions that you had provided me throughout so that we could have talking points throughout our interview. One that really resonated with me, Dr. Ruth, was the question is, do you feel that women today are stronger or more empowered psychologically in ways that they weren't in the last 20 years?
I think in many ways, yes, in that, women now, young women know that they can go into almost any profession. They can be anything. Of course, they're still getting paid less for the same thing than men are, so that's a problem. But I think on these levels that I really was just speaking about, the answer would probably be we haven't made much progress, or we've maybe even slipped backward, and that is about how how we think about our appearance or how we focus in on it to the exclusion of many other things. Also, our control over our own bodies in terms of health. For instance, I think it's harder and harder, not easier and easier, to take responsibility for our own health. And if you look back over the last 20, 30 years, the track record of the medical system in terms of sort of some large subjects vis-a-vis women's health is not so good. You have the hormone replacement therapy, which is supposed to be the fountain of youth. It turns out it led to more breast cancer, strokes, heart attacks, etc. Then you have
wait. Say that again. Say that again, please, so women hear this.
The hormone replacement therapy, which women, was supposed to prevent heart disease, prevent this, prevent that, lead. Well, the study that came out, I forget when it was, 2 years ago, 3 years, I forget exactly when, but it had people really questioning whether this was good because there were people on HRT were more likely to develop breast cancer, strokes, etc. So then you have the bone density drugs. Some of them have been taken off the market in other countries, and one, I think, in this country because, yes, they made the bones more dense, but they also made them more brittle. So women were having more fractures and also other kinds of side effects that were, very disturbing. And then the latest that's come to light, there was an article in the Journal of the American Medical Association just, I think, about 3 weeks ago, new recommendations by the national. I have a sort of a sore throat or
sore
cold,
throat from all your travels.
Yeah, right. So excuse my voice if it fades out.
That's okay.
But the recommendation by the National Cancer Institute, and by the time they recommend something, it's really pretty solid because they tend to not be the first to change things. They're recommending that certain things that have been called cancers maybe not be called cancer anymore, such as, do you know what DCIS is?
What is that?
It's a form of breast cancer called ductal carcinoma in situ. And it's a pretty big, it's a minority, but it's still a big percentage of breast cancers. But it's often something that would take so long to cause a problem that the woman might die of other causes before it would. But in the meantime, because of the way the system is, it's, treated sort of aggressively, surgery, radiation. But so these recommendations are that we need to study more. Instead of just telling women to get, mammograms, we need to study more which ones are the ones that are going to be a problem and which ones aren't, because their recommendation, they said that it's possible that hundreds of thousands of women and men for other, for some of their problems, are undergoing unnecessary and sometimes harmful treatments for things which are so slow growing that they're unlikely to ever cause a problem. Now, of course, I want to be very cautious here. Certainly, some lives are saved, but with our National Cancer Institute and the American Cancer Society, which wasn't a part of this study, but they've been saying the same thing. We just have to take more responsibility. We have to do our own research. We have to look into things and really ask doctors the hard questions. So
sometimes I think the challenge comes asking those hard questions if the doctor has time to adequately answer the question.
Well, that's a good point too. But I think again, it's sort of that phrase, "It takes a village." If all of us insist that we are taken seriously with our questions about our own bodies and lives and health, then it makes it easier for everyone else.
It certainly does. Well, let's talk about beauty. Since you're a beautiful woman, you have beautiful hair, beautiful skin, you take good care of yourself. Is that because you're a yogini that you have all of this, or is it those smidgens, or what?
I think, Cynthia, I have always, since I was a kid, been aware of the mind-body connection. When I was in the 3rd grade, and I got like some kind of a fever and virus or something, so my mother took my temperature, and it was high, and she said, you stay home from school. I don't know what possessed me, but I said, Mom, I'm going to go to school, and when I come home, I will not have a fever anymore. So I did that, and I never missed. I mean, this, you may think I'm a nerd, but I never missed a day of school.
Oh my goodness!
So somehow I knew there was this connection between the mind and body. So first of all, I appreciate your compliments. Thank you. But I've always thought that there's something about if you think young, if you can tap into that inner energy. And by the way, just very quickly, the conference that I was invited to speak at, I was the only one from the field of psychology, but most of it was on something called biophotons. And what has been discovered in the last 3 decades, and they're working more on it, is that we actually have light particles of light within each of our cells. So literally, this idea of the light within is actually, that's a poetic metaphor, but So I have always thought that if we can get our mind and spirit in the right place, it does filter through and affect the way you look. And that's been my main, as you know, I've resisted most, well, we don't have to go into that, but anyway, that's been my main focus on beauty.
I like it. Well, you have to have. I think your thinking makes it so. So if you think that I look young and I feel great and all of those affirmations that buoy your psyche, I think that has to have a very positive effect on your demeanor.
Yeah, and I think, again, think about it. I know I've been subject to this same thing. I'm not any different from anyone else, where it's so easy to look in the mirror and get caught up with, is that really scrutinizing and critically scrutinizing. But think of the potential that we have in our energy and our beings, and women. And this is something I want to throw out a challenge to your audience in a moment.
Yes, let's make a big deal out of this. Okay.
About the particular challenge, about the particular potential that women have. Really, it's. So should I continue
yes,
with
go
that?
right ahead. I want you to tell the listeners what you have in mind for them, because this is really wonderfully important for them.
Okay.
All of it.
So I have to. Sorry, one sec. My throat.
Okay.
Okay. Well, this point that I'm going to make is based on a mystery, which, if we all think about this mystery, it may deepen, at very least, it may deepen our thinking about the essence of what it is to be female, and even more than that, even the meaning and purpose of human life in general. So here's the mystery.
Okay.
So evolutionary biologists and scientists for decades, maybe even centuries, have told us that our behavior, our patterns of relating to ourselves and to others are founded on our sole purpose for existing, procreating and continuing the species.
Okay.
However, I want you to consider these facts. From the time mortality records were first kept, which was around 1500, women outlived men. In the 1700s, when countries first started keeping specific records, women outlived men. And now, let's fast forward to modern times, when general life expectancy has increased for everyone. But in all countries, every country in the world except 4 small African and 1 Middle Eastern country, female life expectancy exceeds that of men. Now, in this, in many countries by 5 to 10 years, the people who live over 100, it's 9 to 1 women to men. And so now, moving toward my point, so women generally go through menopause about, average between 48 and 52 years old. And even before then, it's not so easy for them to have children, right? So in the years before that. So women, when you think of it, can spend 50%, half of their lives, with nothing to do with what is supposed to be their main raison d'etre, which is to bear children and continue the species. Mm-hmm. So something about women's longevity, because if it were really only that, then as life expectancy has increased past, the age of menopause, when, in old times, a lot of people died at that age anyway, you would not keep seeing this trend. In fact, in this century, the rate of acceleration of women's gains in life expectancy has outpaced that of men. So something else is going on. So it seems to me that something about women's longevity is suggesting something different about the meaning of life, or beyond simple procreation. And it may imply something about not just female essence, but our existence. So since this has not, some evolutionary biologists now are, kind of coming out with a little theory here or there. I have my own thoughts about it, but nothing has really been really fleshed out about this. So my proposal and offer to your listeners is this. If any of you would like to offer your own thoughts, an idea, a theory about what this means about women, about human existence in general, I would like you to email it to me, let's say up to a page. And let's say the 2 responses that I find to be most creative or innovative or interesting, I offer you a complimentary therapy session on any topic that you'd like to focus on. And if you're near New York, I'd love to see you in person. And if you're not, we can do a Skype session.
Yes, I think that is so good. Let me give all the listeners, here is Dr. Ruth.
And one
email.
Other thing.
Okay, go ahead.
If you do this, which I hope you do, because I'd love to hear your ideas, put in the subject line ageless. That way I'll know what it's about.
It's from us. Okay, so you got that. Here is her email, Dr. Dr. period, RUTHROSE @gmail.com. So one more time, Dr. period, RUTHROSE @gmail.com. And in the subject line, if you are up to the challenge to help solve the mystery of how is it that women live longer than men, your thoughts, your ideas, your theories.
And 50%, it's not just longer than men. I want to
clarify
this.
Yes,
it's 50%. I mean, many women live into their 90s, so half their lives are spent outside this biological evolutionary. Even if you count the 20 years of, let's say, raising children, it still doesn't take people into their 90s. Whereas men, it kind of makes sense because they can procreate into their 90s. Women can't. So what does that tell us about our unique place in this universe? That's what I want to hear.
That is such a mystery, and I'm thinking about it myself. You'll probably hear from me.
Oh, great.
Because I probably need the session with you too. But anyway, that's a very generous offer that you would take the top 2 creative responses, and you will be in touch with them and schedule a time together. I have some other questions for you, Dr. Ruth, because we're down to 4 minutes on the show.
Okay, sure. Go right ahead.
Okay.
And also, just let me give my website has crashed this week. It should be up and running next week. May I just give people that?
Sure, go right ahead.
Even though the best way to contact me by email, it's drruthrosenbaum.com, and that's drruthrosenbaum.com. Okay,
perfect. And I hope your website will be up. We've had challenges with ours the last couple of weeks. Okay, so let's talk about things that we see in the marketplace today for women. Do you see a lot of women using Botox and fillers in New York?
Great question.
Yes, you've got 3 minutes to go for it, okay?
Quick. Okay, a lot of people use Botox. Just want to throw this out there. Have you thought, women have suffered for centuries for they're not supposed to be angry. They're supposed to be seen, not heard, no complaints, just be nice. What does Botox do to the face? It doesn't allow women to frown, express anger, discontent. They just look very, very pleasant. So it's very interesting to me that it kind of goes right back to no expression.
Mm-hmm. Kind of like the Stepford Wives, right?
Well,
remember that movie?
I don't want to say that because I respect people who, but
that use it. Yeah.
But it's ironic, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also, no, go ahead. So yes,
no, go ahead.
I think that more and more, and at younger and younger ages, that's why when you asked, have women gotten stronger over the last 20 years or so? In many ways, absolutely yes. But in terms of the pressure, I hear this again from my friends and clients who are in their 20s. I think the pressure is worse than it was when we were growing up, to have everything perfect and to start. People are starting using Botox when they're in their 20s, so that they don't even develop the wrinkles. And so I love what you do, Cynthia, because you're doing 2 things. You're not going in that direction, but you're also having sort of along the lines that I say. People have to be, when they do your exercises, they have to go inward. They have to be aware of their actual muscles and how they're functioning.
Yes, Dr. Ruth, many women have told me over the years that for the time they just start their upper eye exercise, that they see and feel their bodies and their minds transforming. It's like the endorphins immediately release, and they feel so much better about themselves immediately.
Yes, and I think on a metaphysical level, as I said, you're going beneath the surface. So they're getting in contact with something beyond just looking in that mirror and that two-dimensional surface and being critical. They're engaging with their bodies through your exercises.
Yes, and I think when they engage with facial magic, they eliminate that hateful self-talk that so many men and women say to themselves all the time. I see it, I hear it, and I just know that helps a lot. Well, Dr. Ruth, here we are at the end of our show. It went so fast. I told you it was going to be like a blur because you're such a great guest, and I love having you on. And we've talked about it for a long time, having you on. So all of you who are listening...
I have a whole other topic for maybe another time, which is about...
Oh, well, we're certainly going to do a video with you when I get to New York again.
Which is about women's sexuality and that
potential
yes,
we want to talk about that. Yeah. So if you want to contact Dr. Ruth, it's drruthrosse@gmail.com. Dr. Ruth, you have been a wonderful guest. I love you dearly. You know that. And I hope to see you soon. So from the Ageless Sisters, we are saying goodbye
and
now.
Thank you so much to your audience for listening.
Oh, yes. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
You've been listening to the Ageless Sisters. Tune in again next time for the most up-to-date beauty and anti-aging secrets, tips, and shortcuts.
There we go. That was it.
Secrets, tips, and shortcuts.
There we go. That was it.
Secrets, tips, and shortcuts.